podcast. We're in season 4 right now. I know I say it every episode, and after season 1, I started saying it, but it's crazy that we're back for another season. This one we're doing soccer entrepreneurs and business entrepreneurs. We're lucky enough to be joined by Mr. Jason Belz of AGY, A Greater You. Jason, how's it going, man?
Man, it's going great. I'm stoked to be on episode 4 because I remember starting out listening to season 1. So this is pretty awesome.
Yeah, man. And Jason, I'm sure if you've heard his name before, it sounds familiar. Seasons 2 and 3, he was one of I think it's sponsors. He was one of our podcast sponsors. Had a commercial on, helped us out a bit. And so now he's on here. He's helped us out with some guests as well. So I just wanted to make it come full circle here, return the favor.
Yeah, man.
So I like the jersey set up in the background. Did you just happen to sit down right there, or
it's the way the new space is set up. This is kind of the only way. Otherwise, I would blend into our plain wall on the other wall.
I got you.
It kind of worked out that way.
You've got quite the collection there. I'm guessing you're not just buying these off soccer.com or Dick's Sporting Goods. Before we kind of jump into it, what's the relation with the jerseys?
Yeah, man, those are all just the individuals that we've been fortunate enough to work with over the last, 5 years as we've journeyed into soccer specific performance.
Yeah, I can't see too well from right here. I'm going to say it's technology, but I think I recognize some jerseys. There's Matt Beasler, who's a favorite. Can you, maybe name some of the people you've got up there?
Yeah, we've got Kyrie Shelton, Lo LaBonta, Roger Espinoza, JC Johnson, Kyle Gregg, Christian Duke, John Kempen, Graham Zusi, Beasler, and then Jerso. And Addie Merrick's going to kill me for not having her jersey up yet. But I got it after I went through all of the energy of getting those up in the new spot. And I was just kind of like, F it. I'm taking a break from hanging things. So for now, I still wear hers instead of actually having it on the wall.
That's fair. Addie and Addie's a friend of mine as well. So I'll tell her not to listen to this podcast until after her jersey's hung up.
There you go. Cool. Right. I can dig it.
All right. So Jason, you kind of talked to us and jumped a few years ahead, maybe with the names of some of these players here, but I'm sure you didn't just wake up and say, hey, I want to train pro soccer players, and then the next day it happened.
Right.
You and I have been friends for maybe a little over 3 years or so, probably when I jumped into this business, and a background for the people listening. I think it was at a Kansas high school soccer coaches like symposium or something. And you were doing a lesson on recovery sessions. And I remember the kids you were doing it, dude, he ripped his shorts.
Yeah, poor guy, man.
All the coaches. And he didn't know. And the guy that I know was so embarrassing for him.
Yeah, that's right.
But I remember watching, and I was just like, man, this is the first person I know that knows something about recovery. At least it sounds like you knew something about recovery more than I did. And I reached out to you, and then our kind of friendship formed that way. I've been told actually by a few people I'm an aggressive networker. And, I'm not opposed to that, though. I'm chill.
That's what we have to be, right? Like,
yeah.
When you're doing this for yourself, like, you got to take care of yourself.
Who else is going to?
Nobody's going to do. I mean, there are times where people will say your name in a room full of opportunities, but not all the time. So you have to get out, and you have to be an aggressive networker. And, I think that's what you and I we're not ashamed to do that. We're not ashamed to say, hey, do you know this person? Because I want to know this person.
Right. I want to know this person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, okay, let's go back and just kind of talk to me about how you got involved in the sports performance field, right? I know you didn't start off in this per se, what you're doing now. So kind of
Mhm.
tell us your background, what made you get involved with being fit and all of
Yeah.
that stuff. Because I know you have quite a story with that.
Yeah, man. We'll have to go way, way back, like 13 years almost to the month
Okay.
right now. Was kind of like the fork in the road moment for me. At that point, 13 years ago, I just worked in the restaurant industry forever. Got myself to a point of not being healthy, working way too late, eating way too much crap food from the restaurant. And then was just like looking at 30, 6 months down the road. It's like, holy cow, I'm getting older. Now I look, I'm like
Yeah.
30, so young. But
Yeah.
in that moment, it's like that was a big number. And for whatever reason, I had like this fear moment of, wow, I'm gonna be old and unhealthy. So I decided I'm gonna go run. My new fitness life starts today. I'm gonna go run a mile and see where it takes me. And I mean, I made it 3 blocks. I made it up a block, over, and I was heading
I'm like,
down
let's
towards
do this.
where the mile was gonna go. And 3 blocks in, I was like, I'm gonna have a heart attack.
Yeah,
Like I think
I'm
I'm
gonna
having a
die.
heart attack.
Think I'm gonna die. Yeah.
So I walked the dogs back home, and I kind of held myself and I was like, I shouldn't call 911 because this is going to be embarrassing. I would rather just ride out a heart attack and die than
Yeah.
call 911 and die of embarrassment. And I'd try to get in shape a lot before then, but never really just followed through. Something about turning 30 made me want to follow through. So, the next day I was like, all right, if I died at 3, let's run 4.
Yeah.
And then each day I just ran one more block until all of a sudden I'm like addicted to fitness,
Yeah.
which was something new to me. But I really enjoyed it. And then, fast forward probably a year, the economic collapse of '08 lost me my the restaurant job that I was at.
Mhm.
And that was kind of a, am I going to stay in this or am I going to move on moment? And it sucked getting fired because I liked the restaurant industry. I
Yeah.
didn't hate it. I thought I was really good at what I was doing, running a restaurant, creating relationships. So I kind of had like this entrepreneurial itch back then of, I'm going to open up a wine bar in Waldo, because at that point, locally at this district in Kansas City, Waldo is just nothing but, 20 to 25-year-olds drinking late nights at these bars, right? There's no place for where
Yeah.
you and I could go in Waldo. And if we wanted to have a glass of wine after, what we got done doing at the end of the day, there's no place to go have a good conversation. So it's like,
Right.
that's what I'm going to do. But then when the economy collapsed, I found myself without a job. My wife kind of pushed me like, hey, let's get out of this fickle industry right now, and make a change. And, I was like, I didn't have a degree in anything fancy.
Mhm.
Um, and so she's like, why not fitness? You love it. And so that was kind of the cool, let's do it. So worked my way out of the restaurant industry into the fitness industry. Just started training Gen Pop clients. Loved it. Didn't think I ever wanted to train pro athletes, honestly, because I wanted to be the support for, who I was when I got into it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Being somebody that like, hey, let's do this. Let's not waste so much time going down rabbit holes of ineffectiveness. Like
Mhm.
let's do this smart, which is what I wanted to do. And then it just kind of evolved, really.
Yeah. That's cool. And I know when we first met, I've seen you now in 3 places. The
Yeah.
first place was like off 103rd, I think, and 69.
Hmm.
And I remember that was very much more of that that demographic that you're speaking of, the people, the adults will say, I'm not gonna say older
Yeah.
people, but adults
Hmm.
who were just kind of looking to have someone push them a bit, right? And
Yep.
you're, just kind of going through it. And then you got the new place off of Flum, and I think it was like 117th or 107, something like that.
Yeah.
And
107th.
seven, yeah. And that was more like you still had those people, but then you were starting to get some more soccer people, and that kind of brings me into my next question was, uh, where did AGY like come to be? Where was the moment where you were just doing fitness, and then you're like, hey, a greater you? That's it. Like, where did that come? And then I know you mentioned that you've worked with a lot of soccer players, and we can see that from the jerseys behind you, at least professionals. I know you work with even more youth athletes. So why soccer? What drew you to that sport, or what from that sport drew you in?
Yeah.
So AGY, where did that come
Yeah, so AGY, short for a greater you, which was the long name we went by for forever. When I was making that transition out of the restaurants into, going through the educational process to become a certified trainer, I kind of just started this mantra to myself of work towards something greater, right?
from?
Like
Okay.
that's what got me out of bed each morning. That's what kept me at our dining room table studying for this every day through the 3-month process that I took to get certified. Like that just kept replaying. That was the motivation. And so once I got to the point, after, I got my start at a big box gym, right? Um, and it was, knowing I was going to work there for a while before I ever opened up my own place. Because, while I was decent in the restaurant industry, I had no idea how I could handle the business side of fitness. And I thought it was really important to work in that big box space, train a bunch of different clients, see who I work well with, hire trainers, fire trainers, get the whole feel before I ever opened up. So I did that for about 3.5 years before it was like, all right, I've got a grasp on this. I'm tired of giving half of my, income to this gym just to have a roof over my head. Let's go make it on me. It's either going to live by me or die by me, and I'm going to be cool either way, whatever happens. I want to know. And so when it was time to sit down and figure out, what's the entity name going to be, a greater you, I just kind of pulled it right out of that, work towards something greater mantra that I had, trying to make it kind of a mantra of what the gym was going to be at that point. And so then, kind of fast forward, how did we get to soccer in that transition of opening up my gym? It was a
And is this
conversation with,
is this the gym that was on 103rd?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yep. So prior to that, I'd never worked with, I shouldn't say never. I tried to work with baseball players because that was my sport that I
That you
loved the
played.
most growing up. I played in college, but even, you know, 10 years plus removed from college, when I was working with these kids, I just found myself being like, just give me the ball. Just let me throw it. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just want to throw it. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah.
not good. Let me do
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
And it was a very unhealthy coaching environment to be in. They weren't getting the most out of it. I was frustrated that I wasn't still playing baseball.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew baseball wasn't going to be an avenue that I could go down. And I played a lot of soccer, Central Iowa 30 years ago, played at whatever the highest level was available at that point. But it was all, for the most part, outside of the biggest schools, which I didn't go to. There was no high school soccer. So I had to, at 7th grade, I had to make a choice. Do I go to like a rival high school in baseball and try to be on their soccer team, but still go to my school?
Yeah.
Or do I just join the football team like all of my friends and do
Yeah.
that thing? And so I chose friends and, regretted it. I sucked at football, got my face
Yeah.
smashed in all the time. It wasn't fun. I was actually pretty decent at soccer. So I was just like, man, I wish I could have kept playing something I was decent at.
Hmm.
And so I think, what that then offered me is I had experience and joy for the game,
Hmm.
but I wasn't like so deeply entrenched into a lot of things that I didn't just be like, well, this is the way we do it with soccer or for soccer players.
Right.
It's
Right.
more, just looking at it from 10,000 feet and being like, these are movement patterns that we are getting too much, or you're not getting these movement patterns at all, but we need them to be explosive, or we need to get you out of these particular movement patterns to kind of help with overuse injuries as much as these kids play these
Hmm.
days.
Hmm.
So I think that offered me kind of a unique perspective of having been in it, but not so long that I was just like brainwashed by, this is what we've always done.
Right.
Um, and so kind of the first soccer player I got was Christian Duke.
Hmm.
And his mom worked at that big box gym that I was at forever. So I knew Cynthia. I had seen Christian. I hadn't really talked to him much, but I knew he got drafted by Sporting. I knew he was a soccer player, but he was just really shy. Always kept to himself until one day he walked in a boot, and I was like, "Dude, what happened?" He's like, "Oh, stress fracture. Season's done. Just back, waiting for it to heal." And so we kind of started chatting then. Next year, same thing. Dude's in a boot. Like, what happened again? Another stress fracture. And so that was like about all we had chatted. Well, then I had left that gym. I was opening my own gym, and he just messaged me on Facebook, and he's like, "Hey, I want to talk to you about your new space." He was at Oklahoma at the time.
Hmm.
Ended up tearing a pec, which was like his first like non like soccer specific injuries, like just fluke, tore his pec, went up for a header, fell
Yeah.
down, tore it. But so then he reached out. He's like, "Hey, do you think athletes can train at your gym?" And I was like, "This is perfect. This is exactly
Right.
what I wanted." Right? Like for me to coach our adult population and then have an athlete come in and train athletes, because it was going to be like a collective type
Right.
space where
Right.
we'd have different trainers working with different types. And
Types of
I'm like, "Yeah,
people.
come hit me up when season's over and we'll talk about it." And so he walks in the gym and we are having like the most like train wrecked conversation. I'm like, "What's he talking about? Like, I don't get why he's coming at me with these questions when he's going to be the one training." And
Yeah.
so finally I was like, "What are we doing? Like,
What
are
are we
you
talking
asking me
about?
to train you or what's going on?" He's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I want you to work with me." Oh, okay. All right. Well, the conversation just got completely different now.
Right. Right.
And so that's where it started. Is just Christian reaching out and wanting to do some work. And from there it was his best buddy growing up, John Kempen, started training with us
Hmm.
shortly thereafter. And then I think they brought a kid, David Lichty, who played in the USL at the time,
Okay.
and then Graham Zusi. So those were my first four, the first year that I started training soccer players, but I
Yeah.
didn't think it could be a full-time job. So it was like that was my fun over the winter during their off season. But then I would train Gen Pop
All
people
these other people for 10 months
all
out
year
the
long.
year. Yeah.
Yeah,
10 months out the year. Yeah.
yeah,
And now it's kind of, I won't say flipped. I think it's more like completely 100%. You're just training the youth athletes and professional athletes, right? You're not doing any
yeah.
more of the general pop.
I mean, I've got a few one-on-ones that
Okay.
I will still train, but COVID has been wild, right?
Yeah.
And what COVID did for me slash for us is I was working through a pretty gnarly back injury when the COVID lockdown hit. So I was going to PT as we were locked down, and one of the ladies at the PT group, who was one of the owners, just was kind of checking in, like, hey, after lockdown, what's it going to look like when you reopen? And that was when we were still, training the pros, but then I was still focused on Gen Pop. I didn't know how it would look if we trained youth athletes, right? And so I kind of explained to Julie, like, I don't really want to, like, I'm kind of afraid to open up before I work through some things.
Right.
She's like, hey, why don't you come in on Friday? Let's meet. We'll bring in Matt and we'll have Brett and we'll all just sit down and we'll talk through some things with you. I was like, really? You'll do that for me? And so we did. And the question that changed my life was Julie asked me, if I could think of like my favorite one client or my favorite type of client, who is it? And so I kind of thought, I figured out who it was, why they were that person. And then her follow-up was like, okay, so what percentage of your week are you training that person or that type of person? And I, kind of thought, did the rough math, and I so proudly came back with 10%. I was like, yeah, 10% easily.
Right.
And she's like, how effing happy are you? And that hit like a cannonball to the center of my chest. And I was like, I guess, to be honest, I'm not. Like, I'm tired all the time. I feel drained. Right. I don't feel energized. And she's like, well, if you trained 90% of your hours with this person, how would you feel? I'd be like, oh my God, it'd be every day. Like, I would love waking up every morning and walking to the gym. I'd be inspired all day long. She's like, right. So what are you waiting for?
Yeah.
And so I did. I literally left that meeting, went home, took my whole website down, rewrote it as quickly as I could, and made a flip in my mind that I'm never training another like adult population group. Mm-hmm. I'm only training athletes because that's what gets me excited at this point in my career. I've been at it for 12 years now, and each day, each week, each month, each year, I'm constantly trying to grow and develop and understand more about movements, about athletes. And, it got to the point where I don't want to sound like a complete a-hole or anything, but like my knowledge started to outgrow what I was able to like put into the adult sessions, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I just wasn't.
I got that makes sense.
Yeah, I just wasn't being utilized, and so it just felt very like I should be doing more, right? And these younger kids and the pro athlete, like they're like, tell me more how to move better. Mm-hmm. Whereas kind of the adult population, just where we're at, diet culture, is like, tell me how to move more. I don't care how to move better. I don't better isn't a thing for me. I just want to move more. I want to burn more calories, and that's just not where I'm at professionally at this point. It just doesn't excite me.
Are you a student that's struggling a little bit with the hybrid and virtual learning and looking to get just a little more help academically? Or are you a parent that has a child who's struggling to keep that same level of discipline and rigor that they had in the classroom at home? If any of these apply to you, check out No Stress Midwest Education, an academic tutoring service where we offer both in-person and virtual tutoring. One of the things that separates us from others is that all of our tutors are board certified educators in Kansas and Missouri in a variety of specialty topics and familiar with the latest curriculum in school districts around the metro area. We are passionate about helping students achieve their goals in the classroom and also committed to helping students build the necessary skills and tools they will need in the future to succeed on their own. Our team follows the latest guidelines from the CDC. We require masks for all in-person tutoring to protect both the student and the tutor. Our tutors will either travel to your home or meet at a predetermined location to conduct all in-person tutoring sessions. All we need is a space for learning, and we're ready to go. At No Stress Midwest, we truly believe in developing the well-rounded student athlete. No Stress Midwest does not tell you what to think, but teaches you how to think. No Stress Midwest Education, an academic tutoring service. For more information, visit www.nostressmidwest.com/education.
No, I get that, and I can kind of relate to it in the sense where, when I first started, right, I was coaching, and I had some of my licenses beforehand, but I'm now in my B license, and I'm in a class where someone played for Chelsea United, right, and or Chelsea, and it's like Chelsea FC, and it's nuts to me that like this guy just played in the Premier League, right? And he's in my coaching course, or there's professional athletes in the coaching course who like are talking to me, and they're like, man, what how do I do this, or how, what's the step? And I realize the smarter I become as a coach, and the more I'm willing to grow and all of that, it's like, what's going to be that next step for me? Is it staying at high school? Is it going to college? Is it going professionally? Right. And I think as we find that passion and we engulf ourselves in it, we want to get around people that can appreciate fully the time and effort we've put in to knowing all of this stuff. Where it's like, if Jason, and you've come out to some of my sessions where I've tried doing the stuff that looks so simple, and like, oh my goodness, I feel like I'm dying. And you're able to say, well, because this is that, and that's probably like that because you don't do this, and then this, and then it just becomes all the way up to my neck is the main issue for my calf muscle isn't working. And to me, I appreciate that fully. I don't quite understand it in the way that you're explaining it, but I appreciate that you understand it, and that when I listen, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And at least you went into the step by step of explaining it instead of just saying how you got to the answer. Right? Mm-hmm. It's like when a teacher used to tell you to show your work in math class, and you would try to cheat and just write the answer because you cheated off your buddy, but they wanted to see you do every step. And that's kind of what you do as a coach, right? Is what I do as a coach is, I can tell you the right answer and you can just take my word for it, or I can explain it. And then now you can start and piece things together on your own when you feel discomfort here. Oh man, last time I did, Jason said that, my lower back was whatever, and I had to open it up by doing so-and-so, right? And then now those players become teachers themselves and become smarter. So
Absolutely.
I dig it. So I know you said you played baseball, you primarily work with soccer players, and are you looking to stay with soccer? Do you eventually want to, maybe not baseball per se, but if you have football players or volleyball or whatever some other sports are you open to them? Is it a
we don't
if you don't have a soccer ball? What's the word?
We don't have like a closed door policy like you must be a soccer player to enter. And that's, I've started thinking about what is next, right? Because, we've got a guy that works for us, Brady, that his passion is football. He does a really good job for us with our strength and conditioning. He enjoys working with all the kids and adults on that soccer side that we work with. But when we've had some guys come in that play professionally for the local football team, right? Like Brady's eyes get like this big and he's like, this is it, right? Like, this is what I want to do every day. Right. And I want Brady to love his job as much as I love my job, right? So where we're at with soccer and the other coaches I've been able to bring on right now, we can do a lot of the soccer stuff. So now I'm like, man, how can I make Brady's day like his 100%? Like, I love waking up. So I am starting to figure out, how do we maybe get some foothold in that football side where Brady can just live his best life.
Yeah.
But I've been so deep into soccer that's like, man, I don't even know how to talk to
What that looks
football
like.
players
Yeah.
at this point. And so, yeah, we've had volleyball players in the past, because at the end of the day, what we do, even with our soccer players, it's movement, right? It's general athleticism, especially for our younger kids, right? Like, how can we just make them more athletic, knowing that will then make them a better soccer player when we combine it with the skills work that you guys do as No Stress Midwest, or you as a high school coach add, right? Like, they don't need more skills in a lot of areas, right? It's not so much like, hey, more soccer is going to make you a better soccer player. It's like, we've got to get you to stop overusing
Usually the opposite, huh?
these movement patterns. So what we do, it's not, you wouldn't walk in here and be like, those are all soccer players. Like, if you didn't know, you wouldn't know what sport they play. Right. So we could do that same training with volleyball players, with basketball players, where it does get tricky with basketball players. And then, we're looking at quarterbacks, right? I would view them more as like, those are overhead athletes, like a pitcher, right? Where shoulder care is going to be of the utmost importance. And I haven't spent enough time digging into shoulder care to be like, yeah, I'm the best one. We're the best gym for you.
Yeah.
So I do have two guys in town that, this may seem like the dumbest business decision to do, but anytime, especially a baseball player comes in, I'm like, you guys need to go train with John and Matt that own Kansas City Strength and Conditioning. They've gone and Matt's worked. He did an internship with the premier overhead throwing athlete trainer in the U.S. out at Eric Cressy Sports Performance, right? So he's been in the environment. He's been taught how to look at the shoulder. And so anybody, I'm just like, go there. They're going to treat you.
They're going to be better for you than me.
They're going to take, and even like my best man in my wedding, right, keeps asking me about like, hey, my son, like, I think he's a really good pitcher. I want to get him in to work with you. And I'm like, Drew, like, I pitched a long, long time ago. Like, literally, go see John and Matt. And they're like, no, but we want to support you. I'm like, it's not about me. It's about Liam. Kid. It's about your son. Please go see them, because they're going to be the best, right? So, part of me is like, yes, I would love to go down different avenues, but like, before we made that complete shift, like a year ago, a year and a half now with COVID, to where I said, screw it, we're just going soccer, right? Like, we just kind of hovered in, like, I feel like adults would come in and see, the pro guys' jerseys on the wall and be like, oh no, this is too much for me. I don't want to do this. Right. And then because I was trying to get some more college players, because I felt like that was close enough to the pros of what we did. Like, I could have the same conversations, but I feel like some of the pro or the college kids would be like, but y'all train like Sue from down the street. Like, no, I want to go somewhere where you train athletes. So we've been on such an amazing ride over the last year and a half with like really just focusing on soccer players, that I do have this like business decision fear of like, well, if I split my focus again, then will we be lost in kind of the abyss of, trying to please everyone? Like, you've heard it, you try to please everyone, you please no one. And so, part of me is just like, hey, we found a niche. I've got coaches that enjoy the niche. Let's stay with it. So yeah, that's a really long answer to
Yeah.
what seemed like a very simple question of, do we allow other athletes to come in here?
The answer is yes. The answer is yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm glad you didn't answer it in one word though. That would have been
Right,
awkward. Um,
right.
but no, I definitely understand that, and and when you have a business, right, and you're trying to, you're the one that's running it. You've got people underneath of you that are looking to you, not necessarily looking to you for money, but you're paying their, you're paying bills for them, right?
Yeah.
They're on payroll, and it's now the decision isn't so much, oh, if I mess up, then it's just me that is affected. Now it's, well, all these other coaches could be affected, and it's one thing when you don't pay yourself, but it's a whole other thing when you don't pay the other people working for you,
Yeah.
and that makes those decisions a lot heavier to make. So I get that. And it's got to come at the right time, right? Like everything happens, as we've discussed, for a reason. And when it's time, or if it's time for you to go into another sport, I think it's going to be an overwhelming amount of things that point you into that direction, right? But when you try to force it, I feel like it's just forced, you
Yeah.
know. Um,
Yeah. I completely agree there.
so, all right, we're getting ready to wind down here, and maybe you've kind of touched on it some. I know I can take some advice from what you've said, but what's some advice that you wish you would have received early on, and what's some advice that you would give someone in your position, and that, or not in your position? What's some advice you would give a new entrepreneur or someone that's looking to make that jump, make that leap, right? And not just in your field, but maybe it's generic, or maybe you have something specific for people in this field.
Are you ready to take your game to the next level? Trust the process and sign up for No Stress Midwest training today at www.nostressmidwest.com/training. No Stress Midwest primarily offers training for soccer players on the individual, group, and team settings of all ages and skill sets. Our training is customized for the player, and our goal in doing that is to continue to grow the love of the game, build a personal desire to want to develop, and create the chance and choice for the player to play at the next level. We have developed a unique solution here at No Stress Midwest Training, showing our clients that you can have fun while still getting better. By creating a unique training environment customized to the player, we feel that not only are we able to get the most out of the individual by creating a no-stress environment, but we are also teaching them fundamentals that they can carry off the field and apply in their everyday life. Visit our website at www.nostressmidwest.com/training and sign up for your first session today.
And before you answer, I have a trainee of mine. I don't want to call him a kid that I train, because he's an adult. He's in college.
Yeah.
Um, and he's looking to, college wasn't for him per se, and he loves personal training and fitness. And we talked, and he said that sports performance is what he wants to do. And when he told me that, that's what I was like, man, I need to get Jason on this podcast, because I'm going to direct him to listen to this one. So, not saying that you have a lot riding on this answer, Jason.
Yeah, right.
Don't mess this up. No. So what's some advice you wish you would have received early on?
Yeah. So when you sent me kind of the questions that we might cover, like this is the one that I fell asleep thinking about, woke up in the middle of the night thinking about, and tried to prepare for all morning, right? Because I feel like part of me wants to say, go find a mentor first, right? Because I never found a mentor.
Yeah.
That, like, 5 years ago, if you would ask me that question, like my answer would have been like, go find somebody that doing what you want to do and work for them, right? Put in the hours and see if it's worth being an entrepreneur. Or I think it maybe, I don't know if it's Adam Grant or who uses like entrepreneur, like just working in somebody else's business that you
I can dig that.
respect,
I can
and
dig
they
that.
like they have your values, right?
I can dig
But you're gonna work on it like it's yours. You're
Yeah.
gonna put your passion into it, but you're not on the hook for all the overhead,
Yeah.
right? And so that stress gets to stop at the door, right? So I would say, hey, go find that person that you want to like have a business like theirs and work in it, and just start to pick their brain. Like, you know, if somebody would ask me 6 years ago, if they sought me out and were like, hey, you know, I like this, should I open a gym? I'd be like, hell no.
Yeah.
Hell no. This is so hard. But I wasn't quite to my purpose yet, I don't think, right? So there's so many challenges. So part of me would be like, hey, go find that person and work alongside them. Let them show you the struggles, ask to see the struggles, right? And so you get a really good idea of what it takes. Well, then part of me is like, well, I say that, but if I would have went and sought out that person, it was a different place then that I'm at now.
Right.
So I may have never ended up where I'm at now if I just didn't be like, you know what, solo mission, setting sail. I'm not taking anybody's advice. I'm gonna take the bumps. I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna tuck and roll when I have to and try to come out unscathed. And if I'm unscathed or at least not dead, I'm gonna keep moving in that next direction until, you know, I find what it is that I'm meant to do or how it's supposed to work, right? So I'm a big fan of
both.
like, I'm a big fan of both. Like they're both on each end of the teeter-totter. Now, what I would say, my advice right now for myself, if I could just stop working in my business, right? Like I hate the business side, right?
Admin stuff.
I hate the budget. I hate looking at numbers.
Yep.
So if I were to have the time to completely redo how it looks now with what I'm doing, I totally would have found a business partner, right? Not another coach to go into business with, but somebody that's like, you know what? I think you've got a really good idea. I'm good at business, marketing, balancing books, right? Hey, let's go in together. You do that, I'll do this, and we're gonna kick ass that point forward, right? Because I do feel like in a lot of ways, not having that business acumen has held us back in aspects of growth.
For sure.
But again, I'm figuring it out as we go along.
Every day. Yep.
And so yeah, the advice part's hard, right? Because part of me is like, man, I wouldn't change all those failures that I made, because every failure has led me to where I'm at right now. And it's, I've taken lessons and grown from it. So I wouldn't want to rob that from somebody, because I don't think there is a complete hack of, do this one thing and it's not.
And boom, that's it. And you're a millionaire. But I think that's what people don't want to believe. They might hear it, but they don't want to believe it. They just think that, oh man, he started his own business. He just knows it. It just worked. And it's like behind all of that is so many failures that have led to you getting to where you are. And if there aren't any failures, that one success is going to turn into a failure eventually, because they won't know how to sustain at that level. Right? And everyone, I say it to my kids, everyone says they want to be a state champion, but nobody wants to do the work it takes to be a state champion. And it's like, yeah, it sounds cool, just like winning $1 million. But you got to go through those failures, those downs, and those downs to
Mm-hmm.
appreciate just the little ups and then the bigger ups. And then you figured out how you keep going down, what happens to go up. And then now those downs don't become as down, and those
Mm-hmm.
ups become a little more up. And then now, after so many years of being battle tested, you're like, hey, I can withstand the storm because I've done it, you know? So,
Absolutely.
okay, I dig it. So, what advice now for a new entrepreneur, right? Let's just say for someone that wants to get into sports performance, training, anything of that sort, right? Do you recommend the big gym and getting, those licenses and those certs and building it up there versus maybe someone like you or someone to be that entrepreneur, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
everyone can't be a chief. There has to be Indians there. What would be your advice for someone that's kind of on the one side or the other?
Yeah, I think, the big gym teaches you a lot of lessons with not a lot of overhead at that point, right? Because even the successful trainers at the big gyms treat it like it's their own business, right? So even when I worked at Prairie Life, I took it as this is my own brand. When I'm training clients, I'm Jason Belz Fitness. I just happen to work
At
at
this place.
at the gym, right? Because a lot of trainers I would hire, if they would come in and like, oh, I got hired. Now clients will just be like, wow, you look
Yeah.
fit.
Oh, that's
Do you mind if I pay you $100 an hour?
right.
Um, it doesn't happen. Like you have to figure out how to market, how to connect and have conversations with complete strangers without them being like, oh my God, the trainer's coming. Oh my God, he's going to talk. Oh
Run,
geez, what?
run.
Right? Like, how can you build a real relationship with somebody? Right? So I think there's a lot to learn because that's the route I went. And in so many ways, I wouldn't change it. Right? I would go train the 100 different people that I trained. Right? Like from the morbidly obese client to the brand new mom to the entrepreneur himself that like could barely squeeze in a workout to the guy that travel. Like you just get such a unique perspective when
Yeah.
you talk to all these different people and you train them and you see what they're going through, right? And I train baseball players, and that's why I realized, shit, I actually don't want to train baseball players, right? So I
Mhm.
couldn't imagine just being like, I'm going to open up my own gym. It's going to be about baseball players. I get cages, I get a mound, and then I flip the lights on. And then all of a sudden, 2 days into it, be like, wow, I actually hate this. I
Yeah.
don't want to, nope, I screwed up horribly.
Yeah.
Right. So there's those lessons. But then also, what I didn't get there was leadership and conversations about how to be a better coach, about how to be better at business, right? There was no leadership there. And that could just be my situation. It could be completely different in any other big gym. But
Right.
I didn't feel like there was much investment in growing me. They just wanted my money and my sales. Right.
Right. Well,
And
and
so
and that's what it is though, because they don't want you to leave and go do on your own. They just want you to be a part of their,
yeah.
circle.
Yeah. So then I look at Brady, who I hired Brady, I think 3 or 4 days before he graduated college. Right. And so he's AGY/me. We've been the whole part of his journey. And, 1 year into him working alongside me with us, he was a way better trainer 1 year into it than I was 5 years into it. Right.
Right.
Because I did get to be like, hey, FYI, don't do this because it's a waste of time. It's not going to work. Right. So he didn't have to learn quite as many lessons. And at this point in time, he doesn't have the entrepreneurial itch, right? Like
Right.
he he loves training.
Yep.
Business and
Yeah.
social media isn't his jam, right?
Yeah.
And so the nice part of him coming straight to us is he immediately gets to start training athletes. Whereas if he just went on his own,
It would
he's
take.
probably not going to be training athletes right away, right? Like he'd have to make the connections. He'd have to develop
Yep.
all of what goes into it. And so I think there's just, again, too, there's no one right
It just
way.
depends.
I love both. I loved my experience, and I love the experience that I was able to give Brady.
Yeah. No, and I'm in, similar. I've got Kyle who, loves training, and he is like, you know what, I'm okay with just, showing up for the trainings that I get set, and that's it. I don't, necessarily want to, be leading a bunch of trainers. He was like, I'm happy, just showing up and doing this, which I understand, right? And to an extent, you can't have all entrepreneurs in a business because it would turn down to just one person running it, right? And everyone else going off and doing their own thing. So no, it's good that you're able to see both sides of it and understand kind of what were some lessons you wish you would have learned, and then help someone learn those lessons, or maybe be a bridge over that puddle without them having to get their feet wet like you had to, right? So it's all about, I think, people helping people, as we've said before. So Jason, my man, I want to thank you for being on. I can't, it has been overdue, but there has not been a season where for you yet. And this, is the first season. So maybe it hasn't been that overdue. It's, the first season available for it.
For sure.
Thank you for being a guest. Before we close out, do you have any final parting words? Any final things you want to say?
No, man. I think we covered it all.
Awesome. Okay. Well, everyone, thank you for taking a listen. Season 4 of the No Stress Midwest podcast, soccer entrepreneurs and business entrepreneurs. We have Jason Belz with AGY, A Greater You. Thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Cheers.